Earth is going to face a massive population collapse over the next 20, 30 years. Massive. The thing about demographics and birth rates, you know what's going to happen in 20 years because you know the birth rate last year. Yeah. It takes like 20 years for a person to grow up.
Yeah.
So we know what the adult population is going to be 20 years from now because we know what kids were born last year. I think we have a serious issue with population collapse. That's far bigger than people realize.
I think we need to watch out about population collapse. This is somewhat counterintuitive to most people. They think that, well, there's so many humans, maybe too many humans, but that's just because they live in a city. If you're in an aircraft and you look down, they say, if you dropped a cannonball, how often would you hit a person? Basically never. In fact, there's stuff falling in from space all the time. Natural meteorites, old rocket stages, all the time. But nobody worries about it because the actual, in fact, all humans on Earth could fit in the city of New York on one floor. Don't even need the upper floors. So that's actually, the cross-section of humans as seen from Earth is extremely tiny, basically vanishingly small, almost nothing. So we need to watch out about population collapse. Low birth rate, I think, is a big risk. And it's also not exactly top secret. You can go look at the Wikipedia, birth rate. So, and this is definitely the civilization ends with a whimper, not a bang, because it would be a sad ending, where the average age becomes very high, and really the youth are effectively de facto enslaved to take care of the old people. This is not a good way to end.
I am concerned about certain directions that AI could take that would be not good for the future. I think it'd be fair to say that not all AI futures are benign, not all. And so if you have something, if we create some digital superintelligence that exceeds us in every way by a lot, it's very important that that be benign. And so actually with a few others, I created OpenAI, which is an AI. It's a nonprofit actually. There's no. I think the governance structure here is important. So we want to make sure that there was not some fiduciary duty to generate, profit off of the AI technology that's developed. So we created this 501c3, but I think it's quite different from. A lot of sort of 501c3s are, they don't have a high sense of urgency, and they're not like developing technology at a fast pace. But OpenAI is. So OpenAI has a very high sense of urgency, and I think that the people that have joined are really, really amazing. And the intent with OpenAI is to democratize AI power. There's a quote that I love from Lord Acton. He was the guy that came up with power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, which is that freedom consists of the distribution of power and despotism in its concentration. And so I think it's important, if we have this incredible power of AI, that it not be concentrated in the hands of a few and potentially lead to a world that we don't want. It's difficult, it's called the singularity because it's difficult to predict exactly what future that might be. Except, I don't know a lot of people who love the idea of living under a despot. Mm-hmm. I don't think people generally choose to live in a democracy over a dictatorship. Like this is sort of like what would be the point of competing for, mutual destruction? It's like it's not about competing. It's really just about trying to increase the probability that the future will be good. That's all. Mm-hmm. So the goal of OpenAI is really just to take the set of actions that are most likely to improve the positive futures. Like, you can think of the future as a set of probability streams that branch out and then converge, collapse down to a particular event, and then branch out again. And there's a certain set of probabilities associated with the future being positive and different flavors of that, and at OpenAI we want to try to do whatever we can to guide, to increase the probability of the good futures happening. And I think that's really what we're trying to do. Certainly I mean, a good rebuttal to that. However, I think if AI power is widely distributed, and there's not, say, one entity that has some super AI that is 1,000,000 times smarter than anything else. You know, if instead the AI power is broadly distributed, and to the degree that we can link AI power to each individual's will. So like you would have your AI agent, and like everyone would have their sort of AI agent, and then if somebody did try to do something really terrible, well, then the collective will of others could overcome that bad actor. Which you can't do if there's one AI it's either has its own will, or more likely, at least in the beginning, is controlled by some small set of people. Going back to the AI situation, this is quite an important debate. Like if you assume any rate of advancement in AI, we will be left behind by a lot. And so then we could be in benign situation, but even the benign situation, if you have if you have ultra intelligent AI, we would be so far below them in intelligence that it would be like a pet. Yeah, it would be like the house cat. It's not the end of the world. It could be. Honestly, that would be the benign scenario. I mean, I don't love the idea of being a house cat. Well, I've been trying to think of like, what is an actual good future? What does that actually look like? Or at least bad, or we're headed towards either superintelligence or civilization ending. Those like the two things that are like that'll happen. Intelligence will keep advancing. The only thing that would prevent advancing is something that puts civilization into stasis or destroys civilization. So then we have to figure out what is a world that we would like to be in, where there is this digital superintelligence. I think and then another point that I think is really important to appreciate is that all of us already are cyborgs. So you have a machine extension of yourself in the form of your phone and your computer and all your applications. You are already superhuman, but by far you have more power, more capability than the President of the United States had 30 years ago. If you have an internet link, you have an oracle of wisdom. You can communicate to millions of people. You can communicate to the rest of Earth instantly. I mean, these are magical powers that didn't exist not that long ago. So everyone is already superhuman and a cyborg. The limitation is one of bandwidth. So we're bandwidth constrained, particularly on output. So our input is much better, but our output is extremely slow. If you want to be generous, you could say maybe it's a few hundred bits per second or a kilobit or something like that output. The way we output is like we have our little meat sticks that we move very slowly and push buttons or tap a little screen, and that's just extremely slow. Compare that to a computer which can communicate at the terabit level. So very big orders of magnitude differences. The analogy to nuclear bomb is not exactly correct. It's not as though it's going to explode and create a mushroom cloud. It's more like if there were just a few people that had it, they would be able to be essentially dictators of Earth, or whoever acquired it, and if it was limited to a small number of people, and it was ultra smart, they would have dominion over Earth. As long as AI power is like anyone can get it if they want it, and we've got something faster than meat sticks to communicate with, then I think the future will be good. I have to say that when something is a danger to the public, then there needs to be some, I hate to say it, government agency, like regulators. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of regulators, like, because they're a bit of a buzzkill. But the fact is, like, we've got regulators in, the aircraft industry, car industry, deal with them all the time, with drugs, food, and anything that's sort of a public risk. I think this has to fall into the category of a public risk. So I think that, like, this is the right thing to do, and I think it will happen. The question is whether the government reaction speed matches the advancement speed of AI. Governments react slowly, and governments move slowly, and they tend to be reactive as opposed to proactive. But you can look at these other industries and say, like, does anybody really want the FAA to go away? It's like people could just be a free-for-all for aircraft. Like, probably not. Like, there's a reason it's there. Or just people can just do any kind of drugs, and maybe they work, maybe they don't. We have that in supplements, like, which is kind of ridiculous. But I think, like, on balance, FDA is good. So I think we probably need some kind of regulatory authority, and I think it's like the rebuttal to that is, like, well, people will just, like, move to Costa Rica or something. That's not true. Okay, like, we don't see Boeing moving to Costa Rica or to Venezuela or wherever it's, like, free and loose. The AI is overwhelmingly likely to be developed where there is a concentration of AI research talent, and that happens to be in a few places in the world. It's Silicon Valley, London, Boston, a few other places, but it's really just, like, a few places that really regulators could reasonably access. And I want to be clear, it's not because I love regulators, okay? They're a pain in the neck, but they're necessary to preserve the public good at times.